Guys, we have to talk about Deltarune. So my sibling and I just recently finished Deltarune up to this point, so that's chapters 1 through 3 and 4, and I have been an Undertale fan since 2015, so that's 10 years. Oh my god, I feel old. And I was terrified for the first 5 years that Deltarune had been out because I was so afraid that it was not going to hold a candle to Undertale. And for me, like, I understand that a game developer can have multiple games and they're not all gonna be hits, but I saw that some of the Undertale characters were being used in the game, or like their sprites or whatever. And at first, that's all I saw. And so I was like, I cannot play this game because I am so afraid that I'm going to hate it. I know that this sounds really dumb if you haven't played Undertale, but Undertale was so good. Like, it changed my brain chemistry. It helped me in ways that I didn't think that were possible for a video game to help a person. It was beautiful, it was fleshed out, and even 10 years later, I'm still replaying Undertale and finding things that I didn't find the first 12,000 times I played it. So chapter 1 of Deltarune came out in 2018, and I was so afraid that it was going to be another situation where a game developer was trying to ride the coattails of their previous work. But all I gotta say to that is, guys, I really should have done my research because Deltarune is a game that has been a decade in the making, at least. I had no idea that Toby Fox had already had the concept for Deltarune figured out before he had even started developing Undertale. I don't want to sit here and say that Undertale was a quote-unquote rough draft for Deltarune, but in Undertale, Toby Fox was trying a lot of things out with the characters, with the dynamics, the battle mechanics. Yes, Undertale is its own standalone game, but in terms of Toby Fox's career, Undertale was kind of his entry into game development, and he used Undertale as a way to not only see how he could make these characters interactable, but also what he could do with a parallel story. At least that's what I have gathered. So in no way did Toby Fox intend for Undertale to be as big as it was, which is absolutely shocking considering how gorgeous the game is. Like, imagine you're like, okay, I have this big storyline in my head that I've been forming for years with people close to me, and I want to put it to paper and I want to make it real, but first, I'm gonna try this. And you are such a genius that the I'm gonna try this takes the world by absolute storm, takes the world and just throws it into a tailspin. And it just inspired so much. And it's like, imagine your project where you're just sitting there going, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be any good at this. And then you put it out in the world and boom, you are hailed as one of the best video game developers in modern history. But anyway, Deltarune is too fantastic for words. I both know now what's going on in Deltarune and still have no idea. That's how good it is. Everything you do in Undertale mattered, and everything you do in Deltarune matters to the nth degree. Each chapter alone has as many Easter eggs and secrets as like a mini Undertale. The replay value on these games are just absolutely insane. And I'm not even talking about beating the game, booting it up, and playing it again. I'm even talking about going back in the game on first run through. You can do that and find a completely different world than the world was when you left off. And more context, more characters, more everything. I cannot stress to you enough how much tender, loving care went into the creation of this game. Everything is so fleshed out. So this is coming from somebody who didn't start engaging with Deltarune until earlier this year because I was so afraid that it was just going to suck. Guys, it doesn't suck. If you're an Undertale holdout fan and you're afraid to, dip into Deltarune and do it. Just do it. Honestly, just do it. You know, when I saw it at first, I was a little scared because I'm like, what the hell? Why is there 3 of them? Why is the battle mechanics like this? What is going on? But honestly, you'll play it and you'll realize, oh my god, this is what Toby wanted. This is the love child. This is it. This is it. This is the game. Honestly, all I'm saying is that it baffles me that 10 years later, Toby Fox is able to make me feel the exact same way he made me felt when I was a 14-year-old seeing Undertale for the first time. But anyway, the actual topic of this video that I wanted to talk about isn't Deltarune as a whole, but in fact it is the main character of Deltarune, or the playable character in Deltarune, Kris Dreemurr. It is at this point that I will put a spoiler warning on the video. The first 5 minutes of this video, you should watch it if you haven't played Deltarune yet, because it's just me trying to convince you to play the damn game. But if you've been convinced to play Deltarune at this point, I would click off the video if you haven't played it now, because it's got some major spoilers. Or if you don't give a fuck, I mean, here, let's do it. Without further ado, I am Wet Blanket, and on my channel, I talk about things that I don't think get enough attention in the commentary community, or things that I just find important enough to get their own video. With that being said, let's start a conversation. So one of the situations when I was playing Deltarune in which I knew that I was in for just an amazing experience was not even when the game started yet, but rather in the character selection screen. So you do get to customize a character in Deltarune, and at first I was like, what in the world? That is so strange. So you sit there, you deck out your character, you make it look like you or whoever you want it to look like, and then you click the OK button to signify that you're done, you know, making your little guy. And immediately the character you create gets thrown in the garbage, and you get shown Kris with the text, "No one gets to choose who they are in this world." Oh my god! Oh my god! Are you kidding me? What? Like, what? Okay, the game hasn't even started yet, and I'm already shaking. I feel like I could make an entire video essay on that one sentence. That phrase is a precursor to what we see Kris as a character go through. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna sound a little biased when I say this. There are a lot of games. I've played a lot of games, bro. I've played a lot of games. And there are a lot of games where the developers are trying to make the main character their own person as much as they can, while still making it an immersive experience for the player. And I've seen a lot of games do this really well, but I've never seen a game do it in the way that Toby does. Chapter 1 is a really fun introduction to the story and the prophecy and the mechanics and, most importantly, Lancer. But it's not really until the end of Chapter 1 when we get slapped in the face with the realization that Kris is going to spend this entire game desperately trying to become his own person. We learn in the end of Chapter 1, when Kris rips his soul out of his chest and tosses it into a birdcage, that we are not Kris. We are playing as ourselves. We are controlling Kris. And like, yeah, we're controlling Kris, we're playing a video game, but the game knows, and more importantly, Kris knows we are controlling Kris. This is such an interesting concept, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Because we're learning that we truly don't know the person that we have been in control of for the past chapter of the game, and that only becomes more apparent as the game goes on. Like, yeah, sure, when you play Resident Evil 8, you don't really know Ethan Winters. I mean, you don't even really see his face. But you know when you're playing Resident Evil 8 or 7 or, you know, whatever, that you and Ethan Winters are supposed to be one and the same. You are controlling Ethan Winters. You are Ethan Winters. In Deltarune, you are not Kris, and that is made very clear. There are a lot of times in this game that Kris is doing things off-screen that we are not allowed to see. This is such an interesting take on the unreliable narrator trope, because as we see Kris engage with Susie in Chapter 3, especially when it comes to the code to the shelter, we learn that Kris knows the code and they could tell Susie at any time, but they don't. And the thing is, because we are not Kris, we do not know to what extent. We don't know who Kris is, and they don't want us to know who they are. From there, the game takes on a little bit of a different tone, where we're just controlling this 15-year-old that may or may not want to do the things that we're making them do. But this 15-year-old may also be evil. We don't know yet. Kris has their own thoughts, feelings, and motives outside of what we make them do, and outside of the motives and thoughts and feelings of the player. I have never played a game where that's been the case. If there's been a game that has done this before, tell me, but honestly, I don't think so. It has even been heavily hinted at that Kris is somehow in cahoots with the main antagonist of the game. You know, the guy that we, as Kris, are supposed to be stopping. Personally, because of the events that happened in Snowgrave, I would like to think that Kris is a good person and has, their head in the right place. But again, we don't know. I have never played a game where the person that I'm playing as, I have no idea what their motives actually are. And so we get this whole subplot in the game while we're playing the main story where Kris is desperately trying to cling onto whatever autonomy. But the unfortunate thing is, Kris needs us just as much as we need them. When they rip us out of their body, they can only hobble around and are very obviously very physically ill and fading from reality. We don't even know how long they can keep their soul out of their body before they collapse outright. Likewise, without a vessel, we can't do anything at all. We can't really interact with items, we can't really talk to people, we can't do anything. And that is so much like the relationship between player and protagonist in real life. The protagonist of any game is severely weakened without the energy that a player gives them, and likewise, a player can't do anything in a game without a protagonist. And I think it's so cool how Toby Fox personifies this, and it's something that nobody has ever thought to do, but now that I've seen it on the screen, it's absolutely fantastic. And it's gonna color the way I play games from now on, because every time I play as a protagonist, I'm gonna think of Kris. Toby Fox is consistently coming up with new ways to suspend the disbelief that comes with playing a game. The game knows it's a game, but it's not just fourth wall breaking, it also knows that you are the player. Undertale and Deltarune both have this quality where they can make even the most jaded video game player feel guilty for decisions that they make. And that is further personified in the Snowgrave route. In the most recently released chapters, we get a scene where, as the soul, we are watching Kris talk to Noelle in Noelle's bedroom, and we jump in and fill Kris's body, again. Without their consent, I might add. And in this scene, we do something that's so awful and terrible, and Kris didn't even want to do it, but we make them do it without their consent. We essentially make a decision for Kris that signs away Noelle's autonomy to Kris and ensures that she will slowly be put under their control. The reason? Because Noelle is the only one that possesses powers that can kill a Darkner. Yes, the reason why we, the player, not we, Kris, do this is because the player selfishly wants to play something akin to the genocide route in Undertale. Except for this time, Kris makes it very aware that this is not what they want. After we make this decision, Kris goes into the bathroom, rips us out of their body, puts us into a trash can, and starts kicking the shit out of us. And honestly, most valid crash out of the century. Kris knows that they are helpless to stop what we are doing to them, their life, their friends, and the people that they hold dear. But they still try to do whatever they can to regain their autonomy. They still do whatever they can to let us, the player, know that this is not what they want. Yeah, you can control what I do for the rest of this run, but I'm not going to like it, and you're going to know that I hate it. I may not be able to live without you, but that doesn't mean that I want to go along with whatever you're forcing me to do. I think that this is the situation that Toby Fox tried to, communicate to us in the Undertale genocide route. That Frisk wasn't actually the one doing all of the killing, or at least not what they really wanted to do. And, in that case, you have, Kara's influence, but you also have the influence of the player. I think that Toby Fox has refined his way of doing this, and now it's going to be very, very clear to the player that we, the person behind the screen, we are the monster, not Kris. Everybody in the world may think that it's Kris that's the monster in-game, but we know and Kris knows that we are the monster. I just can't express enough how cool this concept is. I hope that in the game, as the game progresses, Kris finds a way to become their own person in the Snowgrave route. And I would honestly love to see a situation wherein Kris turns against us. Knowing Toby Fox, he's the only person that would be able to write that kind of thing out well and, execute it well, so... But also knowing that in the Snowgrave route, we are the narrative that is dooming Kris. I mean, that is crazy. And even in the, true pacifist route, we are still the narrative that's dooming Kris. Because they still have ulterior motives, but we don't know what they are. We don't know what Kris knows, and we don't know what the Knight knows, or if they're working together, or what. It is very clear in the true pacifist route there is something that Kris does not want us to know. This gives Toby Fox a very clear avenue to flesh Kris out as their very own character aside from when we are playing as them. And that is something that no game that I've played has ever been able to do. They all try to personify their protagonists, they all fall short. But this game isn't even finished yet, and I already think that this is going to be the best situation wherein a game developer tries to give their protagonist their own voice. So yeah, all in all, I'm really excited to find more out about who Kris is as a character. I'm really anxious to see how Snowgrave ends up playing out, and I love Deltarune, and I can't believe it took me 7 years to be able to say that. Thanks for watching.